You know how usually I complain about Blizzard doing all these important things like announcements, teasers, and community replies at ungodly hours relative to my upload schedule? Well, guess what? My video goes live at 8 PM Central European Time. You know what else does? The Overwatch Free Weekend. So for once in my life, Blizzard is throwing me a bone, it seems. I decided to take this opportunity and go back in time a bit, trying to think about my own entry experience in Overwatch. And I think many of you will be able to relate to this. For many games that I have played, there are always things that I wish I had known ahead of time. Things that made me regret playing in the first place, things that ended up more complicated than they had to be, or just things that could have made my life a bit easier as someone who's just starting out. Given the fact that some of you might be playing for the very first time, I figured I'd go and talk about all of that today. For the last free weekend, I actually made a pretty comprehensive starter guide for all of you who care to get a competitive advantage and learn some things that the game does a poor job of teaching. So if you want to check that one out, just follow the card in the top right corner. But for everyone else who just wants to get some general tips to make your entry experience easier, this video is gonna be for you. So let's stop wasting time and kick things off with my number one of things that I wish I knew before starting to play Overwatch. It is not a shooter. Now I'm already kinda cheating with the first point because technically I knew that. It's even something I discussed on my channel prior to its release. However, you know how people are, the things that we do and the things that we say don't always correlate. Obviously, we could get into the discussion of what constitutes as an FPS by definition, or what shooter veterans claim a shooter must provide to be labeled as such, but that's not what I'm trying to talk about here. All I want to say is that, especially if you're someone like me who has played a lot of traditional FPS before, Overwatch has very little in common with that. Only because there are a handful of heroes who wield guns similar to other games you have played does not mean it's anything like those other games. That's like saying a Minecraft mod that turns bows into guns makes it an FPS. In my starting phase, I've spent a lot of time playing Soldier and McCree because those were the heroes that most closely resemble what I had known from other shooters. But this ain't no Call of Duty or Battlefield, let me tell you. The goal isn't to just click people's heads until you win. It honestly has more in common with how teamfights play out in MOBAs than how you would engage with an FPS. So do keep that in mind when you jump into your first matches. Number 2 on our list relates to high impact heroes, or just what I perceive to be the best heroes. I wish I had known how heroes are scaling to each other in power and how much impact each of them can provide. It is a bit of a revelation that I had when playing Heroes of the Storm not too long ago, and I got absolutely stumped. I was complaining about how I felt I didn't have any impact on the outcome of a match when playing support. And it was then that I was told supports do have a big impact in Heroes of the Storm. And it's the same in Overwatch. When you start playing Overwatch, I want you to know this. Every single hero can potentially make a big impact on the outcome of a match. The solution is not always to just throw more damage at the problem. Picking DPS when you're not good at playing DPS is not gonna win you any more matches. You will have a way higher success rate if you play things that you're good at, heroes that you inherently enjoy playing. Overwatch is very fluid in that regard. I mean, take Zenyatta for example. As much as he's a support hero, he can potentially dish out more damage than some DPS. If you're really good at something, you're obviously gonna make a bigger impact than playing something you're bad at. Bottom line is really just, don't get this wrong idea of having to play DPS to win matches. That's nonsense. Just try to find a handful of heroes that you feel you have an affinity for and practice them to get really good on them. That's how you make the biggest impact possible. And number 3 brings us to the legend of the solo carry. It still kinda relates to the previous point that people are under the impression that you have to play DPS and clap everything on your own in order to win. Solo carries in Overwatch do not exist. I want you to completely delete that idea out of your head. Here is a breakdown of a basic team structure in Overwatch. DPS heroes need space to be able to do damage. Tanks provide that space, but they require healing to survive their frontlining action. And supports need their DPS to actually do their job in order to end the engagement to avoid getting overrun. In that sense, everyone is simply relying on everyone else. If you're a tank main, you'll probably know the frustration of pushing forward to give your team space to work with, but then not getting any healing. Or the feeling of nothing on the enemy team falling because your DPS can't hit anything when you play support, and eventually you just get flanked yourself because the engagement takes too long. The moment that you focus more on this dynamic between heroes allowing each other to shine rather than expecting everyone to babysit you so you can get play of the game, you'll have a much better time playing. We're almost there, guys. Number 4, switching heroes is an inherent part of Overwatch. You know, as much as there are heroes that are very universally viable, like Soldier 76, hero swapping can still give you an edge over staying with a safe pick like that. You know, you can complain about that Pharah in the sky as much as you want when playing Junkrat, but reality is that this Pharah is doing their job, and you are not. Sure, you might really like playing this one hero and nothing else, but be prepared to not only give yourself a harder time, but also get some angry comments from your teammates. Overwatch, in its core, is about adaptability. Your team either adapts their strategy as a whole to make something work that usually would not work, or you swap to something that suits the situation more. You wouldn't believe the amount of time I spent on Genji in my first few weeks of playing, getting angry at all the things that killed me because I did not know how to use his abilities properly. And you know, sometimes it's just not a good idea to run Genji into a Winston, Pharah, and Junkrat combo. I don't want to sit here telling you which heroes you can and cannot play, but I want you to be smarter than me. If you want to get better at the game just in general, then try swapping when what you're doing does not work out. It's with this trial and error experience that you will learn which heroes work against other heroes and when some heroes are more viable than others. Practice makes perfect, my friends. And lastly on our list, number 5, I wish I had known how much this game can just absolutely piss me off. You see, as much fun as Overwatch is when it's at its best, it is probably the most infuriating, rage-inducing multiplayer game I have ever played. And given the fact that I am still playing it should speak volumes for how good it is when it's actually good. But this goes back to our first point of it being nothing like a traditional FPS, and also our second point of solo carrying simply not existing. Everything kinda ends here. Overwatch is not always an inherently skill-based experience. Once you reach a certain base level, a lot of what you do has more to do with abusing map and game design. Sometimes you'll get clapped by somebody who's just spamming rockets into a choke point. Other times you will get booped off of the map. Other times again, you will lose because your team kept staggering in rather than regrouping. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of cheese in this game. And if you're anything like me, you will get angry a bunch. Just keep in mind that you can absolutely lose to someone who, objectively, is far worse at the game than you. And that just because their team did one thing right that your team could not accomplish, or because you got cheesed out of your existence. If you want an inherently competitive experience in Overwatch, you have to approach it in the sense of a unit of 6 versus another unit of 6, rather than basing it off of an individual player's performance. As we talked about earlier, your team has to enable each other to do well. That's why one player's failure can mean the downfall of your entire team. Just be aware of that. And this concludes today's video of my personal top 5 things that I wish I had known before I started playing Overwatch. Truth be told, even if I did, knowing myself, I would have found a bunch of other mistakes I could have made. So don't be afraid to mess up as long as you learn from it, because that, my friends, is how you get better. But I'm gonna call it a day, so thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you all next time.